Welcome to you both. Speculation mounting about an early federal election. You've heard this from me. West Australian Premier Roger Cook is looking to move the fixed date of his state's upcoming election. It's currently scheduled for March 8 next year. Now, what this says loud to me, very loud and clear, Cam, the PM is on the nose in the West. He's a drag on Labor's brand, and Cook wants to go first, wants the Prime Minister to take the medicine from the voters, and hopefully that will then see his state Labor government perceived by voters as separate and distinct from Canberra. Now, if he goes first, the WA Premier thinks there's baseball bats waiting for Labor, and he'll cop them. He thinks unfairly. He wants the Prime Minister to take his medicine. And the fact that this is public now, the fact that he's looking to change the fixed term legislation says to me, my God, their internal polling must be diabolical.
You can imagine from Roger Cook's perspective, he'd be thinking, if I don't have to cop the whack, then why would I? If it's the difference of a week or two, if the Prime Minister is to go in that first quarter or so of next year, Peter. He does hold 53 of 59 seats in the West, so unlikely to lose government. But even still, if it gets close, why would you give your opponents any more leg up? It's interesting the Prime Minister didn't completely hose this down today, only to say it's all speculation. My gut tells me still that he'll want something to really grab onto and crow about when it comes to economic news at the beginning of next year. You think of those first few months of 2025, Peter. I know it's cricket season, but it's the premiership quarter really for the Albanese government. You'll have inflation data out right after Australia Day, and then 2 opportunities before April 1 for the Reserve Bank to cut interest rates. Now, I'd be thinking if the Prime Minister was to go in the first week of March, he's really betting the house on February 18 for a rate cut. My gut tells me he might want to wait a little bit longer into April. Then the Reserve Bank would have 2 chances. I know all the commercial banks think they'll go in February, but if Michelle Bullock's just a little bit gun-shy, it would give them that 1 extra chance on April 1. But never say never. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, the same commercial banks, I might add, who said we'd get a rate cut by the middle of the year, that said we'd get a rate cut by October, that said we'd get it on Cup Day, and of course all of that's moved out. And we know that she's focused on the underlying inflation. He's the Treasurer focused on the headline. The headline's a long way away from where Michelle Bullock wants it to be, and she's pretty steely. You know, Sophie, you've analysed this along with me as well. I mean, you look at her, I think they thought, you know, she's been appointed by us, she'll toe the line. Absolutely not. She's really steely. And I want to pick up that grab. You know, the Prime Minister today said, we will call it in April or earlier. And that's the first time he's given indication that it will be called in March or perhaps even February. I think that's a real shift in language. And I think that's what's playing out with this WA speculation, Sophie.
Absolutely, Peter. And this appears to be a Prime Minister that is now nervous and ready to pull the trigger on the election. He looks already in campaign mode when he had that gathering in Adelaide a couple of weeks ago, that Labor event, and the polls are not going in his favour. So I think he is really looking at things closely, and the move by the West Australian Premier is extremely interesting because Western Australians, I would imagine, would be sick of elections if they have to go to the polls twice in a short period of time.
You're not wrong. Yesterday we had some poor polls again for the Prime Minister, though the first time he hit a lower than Peter Dutton in net satisfaction or dissatisfaction terms, actually. The Resolve poll out today has found there's a pox on the Greens house as well. Their net likeability has fallen to -19. Now, that's a massive drop of 18 points since the last election. Adam Bant, also on the nose. His likeability's tumbled some, 15 points. He's down -15, I have to say. We saw this trend in Queensland. There was a shift away from the Greens. Down in socialist Victoria, they've had some council elections. The city of Yarra, which is ground zero for woke, this is a hard left inner city Melbourne borough. They've gone backwards there, the Greens. I suspect they're on the nose right across the board, and this will be a problem for Labor because they rely on the Greens' preferences to get them over the line.
Yeah, one of the thoughts within the Greens, Peter, is that the Greens vote really benefits when Labor tries to be a little bit more in the centre. It isn't as progressive. And when Labor tries to go a little bit more ambitious, for lack of a better word, if they try to be a little bit more of a left-wing progressive party, then that's when the Greens vote suffers. And that's part of the explanation, at least the Greens have offered, for why they performed so badly in Queensland, that the Queensland Miles government was putting forward ideas like free school lunches and 50-cent fares, basically free public transport. And the Greens' view, or their explanation, was that that hurt their vote because some of the Greens' votes shifted back to Labor, and those who were disgruntled with Labor in the past, that they weren't progressive enough, weren't voting Green this time around. So that's part of their thinking. The big challenge, though, as you point out, for this coming federal election won't just be where the Greens are trying to play attack, but they're also going to have to play defensive, really for the first time in seats like Ryan and Brisbane that they hadn't held before. Those are two very low-profile MPs, you've got to say, in the lower house, Peter, and the Liberals in particular are red hot on their chances in Ryan. They think that's almost in their column already. So it'll be a challenge for the Greens as a political movement, because if Labor isn't going to go full steam ahead as a progressive, left-wing, strong party with those sorts of ideas, then do the Greens hold on to their vote, or does that correct, if you like, back to the Labor column as it had been in previous elections?
Very good point, Cam, because when political parties have had the blowtorch applied on them, particularly the minor parties, they tend to buckle with some of that pressure. It's been, a trend of only ever up for the Greens. This will, I think, put pressure on their internal factions.